All right. Welcome, welcome. How are you, Sarah?
I'm good, Marilyn. How are you?
Good. We were just chit-chatting as I always do with all my guests before I hit record. And I was just saying thank you for coming on the show. And I always try and find people that I really resonate with online, who love cooking, who are very inspirational. And I came across your page, I don't know how long ago, a few months ago. And I like to follow people for a bit before I reach out just to get that vibe. And then I was like, oh my God, she's such a good meal planner. I really have to have her on the podcast.
Well, some weeks I am. It's not like that every week. Let's not all pretend we're perfect. It's like most weeks, yeah, but if we've got a busy weekend or I have a big night or something like that, it can go out the window.
Everything goes out the window, and then the whole house, it's like a whole week's up. You feel
Yeah.
it, don't you now? You feel it.
Yes, you feel it. The house is in disarray. There's washing everywhere. There's like a bare fridge, and you're just like, oh my God, those days on the weekend just make all the difference.
Big difference. So do you want to let people know a little bit like who you are, what you do, your background?
Yeah, for sure. So I haven't mainly through where you found me was through Wholesome by Sarah. So that's my Instagram page, and started that towards the end of last year, basically out of I have a catering business, and that was basically shut down during COVID, the lovely COVID that stuck around. Well, it's still sticking around, but shut us down for 2 years. So I sort of towards the end, it was about this time, a bit later this time last year. So about July, August, I was just so fed up with the lockdowns and the stopping and the starting of my business that I was getting very flat in terms of not being able to plan, not being able to do, not being able to run my business. So I just needed to do something. And that's where I said to my husband, I was like, I'm just going to buy a good camera. I have no idea how to use it, but I'll learn and I'll watch YouTube videos and I'll figure it out. And I'm just going to start shooting my recipes and just put them up. They were sort of bringing me joy and something to focus on during that sort of negative time. So did that, and then just started uploading them to my catering page originally. And the response with them was just really great. People were sort of like, wow, like just over things that I would normally cook on a Tuesday night that, you know, I didn't think was fantastic at all. People were sort of like, oh my God, I loved that recipe and it was amazing. And so I kept going throughout the sort of whatever 20,000th lockdown that we were in last year. And then that was coming to an end. And we all knew, because we were all getting vaxxed and all that sort of jazz, that we were going to be opening up soon. And it was sort of like this crossroads of, do I start up a new page and keep going with this? Because I know as soon as the lockdowns end, my catering business is going to get very busy. We had lots of wedding backlogs and all of that. And I just decided to do it. I thought everyone's really, I just was surprised that how many people found it helpful. Things that I, take for granted because I've cooked all my life and whatever, I sort of thought this is helping people and it's a good thing. So yeah, in about sort of October last year, I started my Wholesome page, and then kind of just did dribs and drabs for the end of the year because I was really busy with the catering stuff. And then again, the start of this year came, and I sort of thought I really want to give the recipe thing and Wholesome a good crack, and started to do that from sort of Feb this year. So now I'm posting sort of recipes every day, and yeah, it's been a big learning curve because I think I'm getting better at shooting and filming and all of that.
Right. There always are worse critics. Like even sometimes I look at some other people, I'm like, oh, that's so good. They do different angles. And I'm just like, I'm not there yet. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I think as you grow and you practice, you get a little bit better. But are you still catering, or are you back?
Yeah. So still catering. So we had like the busiest 6 months of all time. So managing all of that was a bit tricky, but somehow got through it. And then we've kind of gone into a bit of a quiet period now. Like these school holidays coming up and everything are always the quietest 2 weeks of the year with catering and whatnot, which is kind of a nice thing because I've sort of been able to just try and get on top of both again and start to plan for the next year.
It's not easy. It's like this whole and plus you're a mom, you've got children, like the whole household. So, I mean, I don't know about you. I don't really think there is such thing as a balance.
No balance.
No, I feel like sometimes I'm like really nailing the work side of things, and then I go in and I see the washing, it's just there waiting for me to fold, like, oh my God. And then
definitely. I always say if you're doing well in one, you're doing shockingly in the other. So it's just like, unless you've got a band of helpers around you, whether it's nannies, babysitters, mums, mother-in-laws, like it's some weeks our house is just a bomb site, like the entire week. And then other times it's spick and span. Like,
and like, can we just hit pause and no one?
Yes.
Change?
No one touch anything.
Dip your toe, everyone. Just actually move out, everyone. But,
yeah, exactly.
So do you feel like, I love meal planning. I try to do it. I don't know about you. For me, I try to meal plan, map my weeks out. Like maybe on a Wednesday, I'll sit down, and then Friday, I like to have like the groceries delivered or go and do a grocery run, because I know the weekends are so hectic and busy. And I know that if I'm like waiting for the weekend, it's just like mayhem. But do you have like a particular system in terms of meal planning? Because I know that we'll get into like the pros, the cons, and all that kind of stuff. But what is your kind of system, if you have one? And I know it's really basic, but I know that some people are just like, I just don't know how to start.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's the thing, it can change. Like I feel like I say to people, start out and see what works, and just start small. Don't, we put out different videos, do this and do this and do this. And that must seem really overwhelming. Don't try and do it all at once. Just change 1 or 2 things a week and see how that works for you. But with me, I generally like to do it on a Friday, Saturday. It is a little bit different with how much filming I'm doing at the moment, because I always say it's hilarious. Sometimes we'll have 4 meals batched up because I've, batched filmed in a day, and then all of a sudden, but then towards the end of the week or whatever, then we've got nothing. And I'm like, it's eggs on toast tonight, guys. Like I just have really just, but generally if I'm looking ahead to the week, I like to look on sort of a Friday kind of thing and plan your week, as in, what have you got on, that sort of thing. Because I think as well, I used to meal plan before kids. I just aimlessly go to the supermarket and just throw things in the trolley. Yeah. And then you get home, you're like, shit, I'm out for dinner 3 nights this week, or I've got a work thing, or I'm working at one of my catering events that night. Like
go off by the time that
absolutely
slip up. I don't know about you, but I find the biggest slip up, and from personal experience, and also from like when people come to me, is that I think that people probably like they'll meal plan, but they might plan meals sometimes on the wrong day. So like if they've got school pickup, drop off, they've got extracurricular activities, they'll sometimes be like, oh, risotto. It's like, that might not be the best choice. Maybe that's a 1 tray bake. That's something that I would just have potatoes, chicken, marinate it, have it ready in the tray to just shove in the oven at some point. If I can utilize my slow cooker, my oven, something like that on those days are amazing. But I was guilty in the past where I was like, yeah, I'm just going to have like risotto. I'm going to have this. And I'm thinking, I don't have time to stand.
I don't have an hour and a half to whip up a risotto when I get home at 6 o'clock and the kids are screaming because they're hungry. Yeah,
exactly. That's a slip up. What do you think really slips people up as well?
I think definitely not planning. Yeah, if you've got a lot on with kid drop-offs, things like that, and then choosing a meal that's going to take too long or whatever, and then you think, oh my God, why does people meal plan? It doesn't even work. So that's where like sitting down, as much as people like, oh, I don't have the time to sit down. It's like, when you get good at it, it can take 10 to 15 minutes. You literally sit down, you think about your week ahead. You're like, okay, cool. we're home Monday, Tuesday, Thursday next week. I never meal plan more than 4 or 5 nights max.
I'm with you.
Because I've heard lots of people that are like, I plan out the 7 nights. I'm like,
but
that leaves no, that leaves no wiggle room. Like, and sometimes you might see a kinder family and say, yeah, let's head down to the local pizza place and grab a pizza with the kids at 5:30 or whatever. And again, then you've got this excess food in your fridge kind of thing. So I'll only ever do 4 to 5 max. And I just think that we're in a bit of a different boat because we have 2 children, but they're younger. So they don't have that after school activity yet. And so there's not so much that comes into it. We're usually home, like they've got daycare and everything, and we're working right up until that 5:36, but we're not running around outside of the house kind of thing. One of us, both my husband and I, work from home, and that also helps because if one of us is out with the kids, the other one can at least throw something on. But yeah, that I remember asking my community, and a lot of them said like, my problem is I buy the meals for the week and then I realize on the night I don't feel like them. And so weirdly, a one for me is, and it's a bit different now because every day's cold, but the weather, like I always weirdly look up the weather because, if you're in autumn or spring, you can get a nice 28-degree day, and as if you're going to feel like a slow cook a meal or a slow braised whatever, or a soup when it's really warm outside. So just little things like that you kind of go, okay, what does my week look like? I'm out 2 nights, or they're unrealistic, so maybe we'll do a quick takeaway or something like that, or a quick whip up thing that takes 15 minutes, and you could sort of prepare some of that on earlier in the week if you get the time. But yeah, just things like that. It's sort of simple planning of what does my week look like, and then trying to choose, realistic meals that are going to work into that.
And also, I think when you're starting out, sometimes firstly, go through like your pantry, your freezer, because there's always some mince in the freezer somewhere, like, right?
Yeah. Right at the back. You put it in there going, I'm going to use that in the next 2 weeks. And then, somehow you just don't.
You don't. So I'm like, there's always some like something. I'm sure you've bought something with intentions to make. So I'm like, use that up first. And I also think maybe cook recipes, like when you're meal planning, cook recipes that you don't need to follow a recipe guide at first. You can do blindfolded, basically. They're your recipes. You know how to make them without following everything. And it just helps. So what would you say, I don't know, like if someone isn't in the habit, what's a good way to kind of get that habit to stick? Because that's mine. I reckon it's just doing cooking things that but planning them and having
exactly. Yeah. So if you've never done meal planning before, or you want to start it, I would suggest just start out with 2 meals. That's it. And again, you've got to think of it, but you might just plan the 2 meals, buy the stuff for the 2 meals and be like, yep, I'm going to have that Tuesday and that Thursday, and just aim like that. And then and it depends, because there's so many different people out there. Some love cooking, some hate cooking. Some people, it stresses the hell out of them, so they get very nervous following a recipe. And a lot of my girlfriends are like that they're like, but I just stress out so much in the kitchen. And I'm like, oh my God, like that's just so obviously different to what I feel. So I'm like, that would be horrible. Like to,
and the pressure to get it perfect. And I just think just it's okay. Do the basics, and then you can always add to it and just taste. But I think it takes, by just having the things there ready to go, it kind of takes the pressure off.
Definitely.
I mean, oh my gosh, some of my girlfriends are like calling me in the morning, like, give me an idea, like what can I cook tonight? I'm like, I don't know.
I already have to worry about myself.
Just do a pasta, just get a charcoal chicken.
Exactly. But that's the thing, just start out slow, pick 2 meals, get good at those meals, and then those will, they're meals that you love, and then they can be 2 weekly meals that you do each week that you are comfortable with. You can get on the table in 20 minutes, and that might take a bit of searching around, looking through Instagrams, looking through recipe books until you get those. The other thing I always say is like, people often say, oh, but that's boring, because then I'm always pigeonholed to that. But choose a night for something, like, Meatless Monday, have something vegetarian. Taco Tuesdays, you can always change up your things in your fillings. You can do chicken, you can do salmon, you can do fish, you can do beef tacos, you can change your sauces so that they're almost not even Mexican. But it just, then Wednesday pasta night, at least it gives a little bit more. When you're just starting out and you're like, oh, it's so overwhelming to even think about doing that, it can give you a little bit of structure to help plan it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think sometimes people see these perfectly curated fridges, and I always say sometimes it's okay. I will sometimes pre-chop the broccoli and have it ready to go, but that's obviously because you and I do this for work. So,
and we love it, and we do it for work. So it's a different thing.
I'm always sometimes I'm don't even pre-chop or prep anything, because you've already taken the chunk of stress away by knowing what you're going to cook that night, having the stuff in the fridge. Really chopping up an onion, a bit of garlic, and some veg isn't a lot of time when you know that it's in the fridge. It's there. You know what you're cooking. You've already taken the stress of thinking. Oh my God, the stress of thinking, the stress of going to the grocery stores, forgetting half the freaking ingredients, and then coming home, unpacking, and then having to start cooking.
To then do it. Exactly. And when I used to be a primary school teacher, I would go to the supermarket 4 times a week on my way home from school at 6 o'clock. And I'd be like, oh, what am I having for dinner tonight? And I'd stand in the aisles. And all of that process would just take an hour in itself. And I do it 3 or 4 times a week. Like, exactly right. That the fact that you've even sat down, thought about your week ahead, said, right, I'm going to plan 1 meal, 3 meals, 5 meals, whatever it is. And you've gone out, got the stuff, and it's all in the fridge. That's just half the battle.
Yeah. And I also say, like, if you're making a bolognese, double batch it straight away. I always say to my friend, I'm like, I'm going to tattoo double batch on your wrist.
Yeah.
Because the amount of times that I'm like, why did you not double batch that? Because you don't, obviously, sometimes when you're not in habit, but I'm like, things that, like a soup, chicken soup, and that everyone loves it. That it's also sometimes good to have in the freezer for having lunch.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, oh, I've got nothing. But if I got soup, I'll defrost it and I'll have it over the couple of days for my lunch. So double batching. Do you like the freezer or not? Because I know some people are anti-freezer.
I love the freezer. I just don't have enough bloody room in it. It's like all the... I'm like, I need to get like a second freezer for all my...
That's there. I should have a nicer backdrop, but I've got the fridge and the freezer.
Your 2 best assets just sitting right there. But yeah, we've got a great fridge, but the freezer section is actually quite small. So you put a couple of containers in and it's almost full. So I've really got it, which I've gotten much better at as well since, having children or whatever, but use up what's in the freezer so that when you do double batch or whatever, you've got room to put it in and then use that up in the next 2 weeks or whatever.
Yeah, I know. It's so... Oh, but then also sometimes I'm like, if you are not on the ball, that can get full really quick, and you just... you know what I needed? I needed the upright more so just so that I could like freeze the trays in there. When you're freezing, like say gnocchi or whatever, I like to have it on a flat tray, and I just felt like those under ones are just...
They're too fiddly and small. You can't fit. So, yeah, exactly. You can barely fit in ours. Like the length is about sort of that. So you've got a big container and you're struggling to even get it in.
Yeah. And then you're having to rummage through and see what you have. But it's just... So like, where do you get your inspiration from for your recipes? Because I mean, for me, I've got an endless bloody list that I just like, I'm going through. I always get these ideas, I write a list, and I just feel like time gets the best of me personally. But do you just, I don't know, like, when do you get your inspiration? Any moments or... Yeah,
I feel like, I've got 4 billion, that like my mother, 4,000 billion cookbooks. So I love just looking through them and going, oh, that looks good, I'm going to make that soon, and whatever else. But I think for wholesome, it comes down to a few different things. Like, I know I keep banging on about the weather, but it's like now it's freezing. Like, so people do feel like that different kind of comfort food, whether it's soups or casseroles or curries or whatever. So, and for them, again, I know this only because it's my job and passion, but I find them so easy to do because it's almost like there's a formula to them. It's like your onion, your garlic, your veggies, your stock, your tomatoes, whatever. And it's the same. You just alter it slightly for whatever you're cooking. And I know not everyone should know that, but it's sort of... So I love those meals because they are like my blindfold meals. It's like, I've got some chicken in the fridge, I've got some chorizo, I've got some paprika, I'll do a Spanish stew or whatever else. So that sort of comes very easily to me. But then I love salads. Like, salads for me, just like, even though it is winter,
salad, good different, like just roast veg or like noodle bowl salad, or... They're
just the best. The flavors and the textures and the dressings, like, they're just... I'd say they're my thing most of all. But different. Sometimes I'll look through cookbooks. Sometimes I'll kind of just... as you do, write a whole list, and then half the time I don't get through it at all because I write 20 things down. I'm like, I want to get them filmed and done in the next week, and time gets the better of you. But all different. I love a whole lot of chefs, so I've got lots of chef cookbooks and things like that. But again, that's a bit different, depending on how much effort and type of meal and recipe you want to get inspiration on for them to put out to wholesome. Not a lot of my community want, 8-hour confit duck legs and all of that sort of stuff. So lots of different places.
I think that's the thing. I follow, like, obviously lots of accounts and I love what they do, but I'm like, confit salmon is just not, amazing. I would eat it out and I would like to attempt it just for a challenge for myself, but I just feel like we're all so time poor and we just
totally
and
no one has time for that anymore.
Yeah, and the tips, like sometimes you just pick up a good tip or trick or something that you're like, oh, I never thought to do that, or a flavor combo. And I think that's what it's really about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think like what do you feel like really motivates people to make your recipes? Because I know that I produce like a lot of recipes, but half the time people don't even make it, which obviously because we're in consumption mode, we're like, saving and creating, collections on freaking Instagram and now on TikTok. That's a whole nother, oh my God.
Oh yeah, God, I haven't even got that far yet. I'm like, I'm just starting to get the whole posting daily and whatever. And then I've got to think about those ones. Like,
no, is there anything that like you find that really helps people to actually cook the recipes that they save besides meal planning? Because yeah, I always wonder about that. I don't know.
Yeah, it is interesting. I was talking with a friend the other day who's got a business, different type of business, but she's like, isn't it funny? You can spend so long on a reel and think people are going to love this. Like, I'm so excited by this one. You upload it and it gets like nothing. And you're like, oh my God, that's so annoying. I put so much time and effort and thought into it. I thought everyone would love it. And then other ones, like I did how to poach chicken breast on the weekend. And that for me, like, I was like, I was standing there and my tripod was there. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll pop on my camera, may as well while I'm doing it, put it up, and it's just going really well. I'm like, that took me 5 minutes and no thought into it. Like and so I think it comes down to, well, sometimes you can't actually explain why some go well and some don't, but the time for people, the simplicity for people. I think so busy, whether you have children or not, like if you're working, it's just, there's not enough hours in the day. And if you're not into cooking and you're not passionate about it, as if you want to bloody get home at 5:30 or 6 o'clock and spend 2 hours cooking a dinner that then you have to clean up and then your whole night's taken. So I think the timing for people is a big one. If they can whip together a meal in, the effort that goes into it. Because I was just thinking a lot of my slow cooker ones have recently gone quite well. They're dump. Like they take forever, but they're doing the work themselves.
Exactly. That's what I often think, that if I'm doing, like, I wrote up a recipe for like my next book on one bowl dinners, like little mini ebooks that I do. And I did a beef and cauliflower stew. Now, yes, there's more ingredients, a little bit more chopping involved. However, chop and put it into the slow cooker and you go.
And you walk away.
If there's a bit more ingredients, the method has to be really easy.
Simple. Exactly. It's like, okay, you might have
more methods, then it has to be really basic ingredients.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think that's exactly right. I think when people see an ingredients list of 12 or more things, and then the method is also like 7, 8, 9, 10 steps, it's like, oh, get real. Like that is just not what I have time for, and I don't have interest of that. So I think the simplicity of them. So if even those slow cookers, take the 8 or 10 hours to cook what's in them, it's just the whole 10 minutes prep and you walk away and it's done. And the same thing with the other end, that if you're doing the prep and you have to cook the meal, the quicker and the easier it is. I think that's what people are liking, because the time, it's like
it's really hard.
And
also, like for us, when we're producing these recipes and reels and videos, because now it's all video. I mean, I sometimes look at people that I admire that have been in the industry for a lot longer, that have been blogging for a lot longer, and I mean, look, we all have comparisonitis at times, his charge, but I always remind myself, I'm like, listen, they've been doing it for like maybe 10 years, 5 to 10 year mark. And back in the day, but times change from year to year. It changes a lot. Like Instagram changed from last year. Like now it's pretty much all video because it's, like TikTok basically. I'm like, hang on, people were like blogging, they were big on Pinterest. And I'm not saying that's dead, that still happens, but like they're big on SEO and photos and all that. Because I really beat myself up around the photography. I'm still practicing, because much like you, I've got a camera, but I'm still figuring it out. I mean, I just styling. And after you've like thought of a recipe, you're writing out the recipe, you're cooking, and we're the ones washing up and doing everything.
Oh yeah, the wash
then
up.
to like style it. And I was just so hard on myself, and I was like, far out. Like, just, you've done the video, it's just, I don't think
done is better than perfect.
I know, easier said than done though. But how long is your process? Because for me, I think a recipe, 5 to 6 hours. That's me. I could be,
No, I'm similar. So I've got a little bit better. Like, I used to do it one a day, and I just found that like chewed up the whole day. So now I'll be like, okay, Tuesday next week, I'm batch cooking, and I'm going to try and get through those 3 to 4 recipes. And the kitchen looks like a bomb site when I finish. Like, it's actually, if you walked in, it'd be like, oh my God. And sometimes the energy that you have to like get in your head to go, I've got to clean all of this up now before going to get the girls and then doing the dinner, it's like, oh, well, just do it. Because I find if I try, I would, out of one day, I can probably get 4 recipes done at most if I'm like charging.
Yeah.
But that's full on. Like, that's, things are in the oven, other things are on the stove. Now I'm styling that one over at the table on the flat lay with the napkins and whatever. And then it's like, okay, got that one done. Now on to the next one. Like, it's nonstop. I haven't been going to the gym for the last, 2 or 3 months. And I feel like that's just a workout in itself.
You don't need to. That's like Speedy Gonzalez. Because then you got to write the recipe up. Then you got to like edit the video. Then you got to like upload it. Then obviously interact with people. And then it's like the voiceover as well sometimes.
Yeah, all the little bits that just keep get added in, and you're like, oh, okay, that's another bloody 15 minutes to that one reel. And there's lots that goes into it.
And then uploading it to the website and because I also was like, oh my God, do I put the recipe in the caption, or do I put it on the blog? I don't even know. Where's the rule book? Can someone tell me? I mean, it's better if you put it in the caption, but then I'm like, but then you want people to go to the website.
Go to your blog.
Yeah. Like, and I just think, but then they don't, because who clicks off, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I know it is hard. At this point, I give all recipes on Insta, but I am the same. I'm like, I think that's probably deterring people from going to my blog and, and properly getting the recipe and reading it. And we put a lot of time into that. So yeah, it is very tricky to know, but people's attention spans are very, move on. So it's hard to know if I start taking out the recipes, are they even going to go onto the blog? Like, yeah.
And it's just, I think it's also being conscious of our energy, because we can so easily get sucked into that vortex of produce more.
Yes.
I had a bit of a burnout mode last week, because I was like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And then I just was like, hold on. Who said you have to post every day? Like, yes, obviously it's great for like growth and helping and insights and stuff. But I'm like, you don't have to, like, you can just, because then I feel like it takes the joy out of the cooking process and what I'm producing. And I just feel like it's just doing it for the sake of doing it.
And it becomes a deadline every day. Like, I listened to a podcast yesterday. I went for a 15-minute walk. So I was like, Sarah, you actually need to get outside and get some fresh air. And I listened to a podcast on burning out, because it was just like, and it was based around Instagram and that kind of thing. But I sort of came home and had the same conversation with my husband, where I was like, I don't know if this daily posting thing is going to be sustainable. Like, it's like you've got a huge deadline every single day, and you feel like you let down your community if you don't put it up. And so if I've got other things for my catering business or things that I'm working on in the morning, it just hangs over my head all day that I haven't put up my daily recipe reel. So I sort of said, Tom and I were talking, and I was like, I think I just need to relax a little bit and pull it back soon, and just be okay with, if there's a day that you don't post, it's okay. There's enough recipes there, and no one's gonna, so.
And you can repurpose and reshare it. I mean, sometimes what you shared 6 months ago or 4 months ago, like, people have forgotten about it. You can.
Exactly.
I feel like, because my girlfriend, she's, also, content creator, and she's like, you can repurpose. Who said she goes, it doesn't matter. Like, no one's going to crucify you. Like, I'm like,
absolutely.
Where did this come from? Because I'm not like a competitive person or anything like that. I'm just like, but it's, for some reason I found myself like being like, oh my God, you have to do more. You have to do every day. And I thought, I'm like writing some recipes for an ebook. I'm doing this, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
I'm doing the washing as well. I've got to pick up my kids and this. And I'm like, it's not always possible to just be giving and giving
Yes.
free. I'm like, sometimes it's okay to put up a picture, even though Instagram says they don't like it. It doesn't matter.
Exactly. But repurpose for sure. It's so funny. Like a week ago, we had my daughter's 5th birthday party, like last weekend, the long weekend.
Yeah.
And because we were planning for that, we sort of had like 55, 60 people over. It was just, I don't know.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, my husband and I love entertainment.
A good caterer.
Yes, exactly. But we love a party. So we're like, yeah, let's do it. She hasn't had a party in 2 years because of COVID. Let's just have everyone over. And because we were focused on that, like my mum came down and stayed for the 2 nights before and was an amazing help. We were all focused on that. I kind of woke up on Saturday morning and went, oh shit, I don't have a reel for today. It's like, got to put something up. So I used one of my favorite chicken noodle salads that I had posted like 4 months ago and use different kind of video takes because I always take way too many, which I need to get better at it, at culling and being like, that's done. Anyway, I put it up and it's just going insanely well right now. And you're like, oh my God, that I didn't even have to film a whole new recipe for that. I didn't have to, like, it's just interesting sometimes how it works out. Like I felt a bit, oh, I don't have a recipe and I'm reusing another one that I've already done, but I was like, I don't have the time to think about it today. Focus on Lily. Lily is your focus today. Put it up and now it's going really well.
No, I know. It's just, that's how it is, right? We just kind of get into that. But then how does your life as a caterer look like as well? Like, are you in the kitchen cooking as well?
Not anymore. So I was for like the first before until I had Lily, I was cooking.
How many years did you do it for? Well, have
I got it for? It's now just ticked over 7 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So you would have, how did you start? Like, how did you get into that? Because you said you were a teacher.
Yeah, well, I just loved cooking and I really loved teaching as well. Like did my master's in teaching, finished and got a job. But I think during the terms you were so busy doing your job, each time the holidays came around, I just couldn't get this food business dream out of my head. Like, and I was like telling myself that I was nuts because I just started my teaching role. Like I was like, Sarah, you love this. You just studied for 3 years doing a master's, getting this. Like, just forget about the food dream. And then the next holidays would come around and I'd be like, and I remember talking to Bash, my husband, and Lars, my sister, being like, I can't stop thinking about it. Like, and I know what I'm like. And if I don't do it, I'm going to always wonder. And they were like, then do it. Like,
you can always go back to things. I think that's
exactly.
You can always go back. I was once upon a time a nurse, pediatric nurse. And again, same thing. It was just like, I just felt something else. Like, oh my God, like I'd been doing it for years and stuff, but I thought, no, I think we have this thing, right? Like you finish high school, you got to know what you're doing.
Yes.
Study. And then you got to like die doing it. And that would be great. But, you know, we pivot.
It doesn't always work. Yes. And you have to go with those. And this is what I'm a big advocate for women. And I feel like so many women have these dreams to do things, but they're like, I can't because of the kids, or I can't because I've got a stable job, or I can't because I'm going back to my job after maternity leave. And I'm like, oh, I just wish you'd take the leap of faith and do it, because it's the hardest thing you'll ever do, as well as being a mum, but like so hard, and it throws so many spanner in, and you've got to grow up really quickly and mature and be able to face a lot of awkward, horrible situations, money, clients, things go bad, all of that, but you learn so much. And
oh my God,
it's just incredible.
And also people, I think, like, because I think when you change, it's, you know, it's a new chapter, and doesn't mean that you failed at what you do. And I think that there's this kind of like, we don't really like glorify change, do we? We kind of deem it as a negative thing, like, oh, she mustn't have been doing well, or oh
yeah, she's only been at that job for a year, or
I knew that was just a phase. It was just it's like, oh my God, give something a chance as well. Because I think, like, if you think about it, if you work in the corporate world, you start off as the photocopier dude. And then well, I mean, not literally, but you start as an internship or something, and you do the basics, and then you climb the ladder, and that could take years. So why is this an expectation, like when you start a business, that you've got to go from like creating just content and figuring it out? I think because in the early stages, I was like, I need to know, like, what's the roadmap? Like, do I just like, do I have to do SEO, or do I have, and I was like, oh my God, can you just chill the fuck out and just be like, it's okay, go with the flow. see how it is, see what works for you, what you enjoy, and then go from there, rather than burn out and then think, oh, well, that was shit, and then get turned off it.
Yeah. Exactly. It's just about taking little steps, and there's always help out there. There's always ways you can learn it. It is manageable, but I think if you feel that kind of, oh, am I in the right job, or oh, I keep thinking about that, or oh, I'd love to be my own blah blah, then I just wish that people would give it a chance and
just give it a go and try. And so then you had this dream about food. Did you know it was catering, or did you just go, I just want to cook meals from home and sell to people first?
Exactly. That's how it started out. So Mum and I started it, and it was so funny. We registered my tiny little Pran kitchen, and had it all in there. And we just my husband's so great with all the technical stuff, so he got all the website and everything up. So we just started doing weekly orders of things like some of the things I post now, because we don't actually have that side of the business anymore, but lemongrass beef curry, all of that. So Mum and I would drive them around Melbourne and deliver on the doorstep. And most of it, all in the beginning, it was friends and family, everyone, and I'll never forget that. It was just amazing. They'd put in their weekly order, and we'd take it to them and do all of that, and worked really hard at that sort of thing for a good year, like every day kind of thing, and then started to get the catering sort of stuff going, and that kind of built up. And then we just realized with the meals, because it's hard to make any money off the meals, like the margin is so small. We weren't set up, like we weren't a big operational business that could churn out thousands and thousands of packaged meals a day. And it's not where, like, I loved weeknight, like cooking the weeknight meals and everything, but I also loved the events and the catering, and that's where I saw the business going more. So that's we closed the doors to the weeknight meal and online stuff about 4 years in, and then just focused on the catering.
How good's that? And so how many people, what's your largest event you've done?
Oh God.
That you were just
largest event was like 350, and that was pretty full on. A couple around the 280, 290. And they're like, again, we're not a huge business. So for us, they're just like, oh God, like they're just, waiting for the spot fires to pop up and waiting for the shit to go wrong. And, I'm usually there not giving myself a task at all, because I'll run around and put out the spot fires basically. But they're all good. Our main sort of job would be like catering weddings, private property weddings, that kind of thing, around about 150. And that's a beautiful number. Like it's manageable for us. And and that works really well.
And now like you get to kind of relive the whole weeknight meals, but through
in a different way. Yes. And have other people. I think that's the best part about it. Like I love making the meals and selling them to people, but now it's so nice. I get so many messages and stuff being like, oh my God, made your lemongrass beef curry last night. It could not have been easier, and it is the best thing. Everyone in our family loved it. It will go in our weekly repertoire now. Like,
how good.
And when you get that, it's just like, oh my God, great. Like it just gave that family so much. I don't know, some of the messages I've got, and people going through hard times, and that my recipes have helped and all of that sort of stuff. I'm like, oh, that's just really, like, I take it for granted because I've cooked all my life, and it's
like nothing. It's like we do it blindfolded, like it's nothing. And then you get someone, they're like, oh my God, thank you so much. Like I was at footy training, and I had already everything. When we got home, I put the tray in the oven, and by the time the kids had a shower, there was a home cooked meal. And sometimes my girlfriends tell me like, oh my God, I've had takeaway 4 nights a week. And I'm like, how can I help you? It's not, I mean, financially.
And save your money. Yes, my God. Takeaway these days.
I mean, we can't, something cheap is like 80 something bucks at least.
Yeah.
If not more.
It's like we live down the coast, so we don't have a huge, when we first moved down here 5 years ago, it was so funny because we're actually in another, in Summers, but the closest like town was 5-minute drive, but all they had was fish and chips and pizza. And because sometimes I like healthier takeaways, like I love Japanese and Vietnamese takeaway and all of that sort of stuff, I'd be like, oh, I don't feel like fish and chips. It's going to make me feel sick. I'll just make something. So we actually got quite used to not using takeaway. But every time I go back to the city, if I stay at mum and dad's or I'm there for work or whatever, I'll get, some takeaway Vietnamese or whatever. And I'm like, was that just $50 for just my lunch. Like, it's just, and then you imagine, you know, a family of 4, if you're getting that 2 or 3 times a week, that's just like mind-boggling.
It's mind-boggling. My girlfriend was just telling me, she's like, you know, sushi's our go-to because it's sort of healthy, but it's also, but she's like, since when is sushi so? And look, I understand there's like lots of price increases with food.
Yeah.
That, like, I understand, but at the same time, I'm just like, it's not sustainable. It's not. It's just
like, yeah, even sometimes when we don't go out a lot to cafes and things like that. And every now and then when we do that, I'm like, was that just $98 for like a couple of coffees? So yeah, that part of it, if you can meal plan, God, it saves you, you know, you just see the bucks back in your pocket.
Back. And you know, I think choose meals that are easy. That I get people saying, my kids love your food. And I'm like, my kids don't.
Oh, my kids don't. Lily at the moment, Penny's actually awesome. She eats everything, but she's at that 18-month stage where I feel like they are just garbage trucks. You can just kind of give them whatever and they take it. Lily used to be like that until about 9 months ago. Now it's gets up every night, sits there. I don't like this. I know. And I'm like, Lil, you've actually never tried it before. So first you need to get your fork and have a try, and then you can judge it. And it's so funny because they've got this chef at their daycare, Chef Kelly. And every time she comes home, oh, we had a roast today. I loved it. Chef Kelly made it. So I've got this like secret, she doesn't even know about it, but I've got this secret rivalry with Chef Kelly where I'm like, was that as good as Chef Kelly's?
Yeah.
Did
she put the same sauce? Because mine looks more saucy than that.
And Lil's looking at me like I'm a psycho, like, I don't know, Mum, like she's 5, so she's probably like, what the hell? But it's just like the battle of trying to get them. And it's so hard because that's another question I get all the time, like, which of your meals would say are good for the whole family? And I always had that at the forefront of my mind, but it's so hard because you're like, firstly, kids change all the time. Like 1 week, Lily will love this. So I buy a shitload of it. And then the next week she's like, oh, I don't like that anymore. I'm like, and I actually remember being like that as a kid. So I kind of, get it. But then also every child's tastes are different. So what my child likes might be totally different to what your child likes. So that's where in my recipes, I try to say, you know, add any veggies you like at this point.
Substitute. Yep.
Yes. Like it's just too hard to say, every child's going to love this recipe because it's just not realistic.
Like my son won't eat like even a Macca's burger, won't.
Yeah, that's like Lil.
Yep, hates it. Like he's okay with nuggets, but so he'll have my homemade burgers. So that's great. Yep. My daughter will love a Macca's burger, hate my burgers. I'm like,
oh, that's exactly Lily and Penny. Like Penny's still little, but she's had a little bit of a cheeseburger like a few times over the Easter holidays and that sort of thing. Chows it down. And Lil's like, what's that? I'm like, it's a cheeseburger. They're delicious. Like, just have it, darling. And she's like,
like a cheese.
Yeah, who doesn't like a cheeseburger? I'm like, oh my God. So she just, I know. It's bizarre, isn't it? And that's what I'm learning as well now with the 2 of them. I'm like, oh, and I know there's a million families out there that are like, duh, I've got 4 children. Imagine that. But it's now balancing those likes and dislikes between the 2 children as well. I'm like,
that's why I'm like, with things like, I know that they love schnitzel. So I will crumb and freeze 2 kilos of schnitzel. So like I made teriyaki chicken noodles because I was recipe developing that. We're going to have that for dinner. My son's not going to eat that. He's going to be like, yuck, I'm not. So I don't care. I'll just bake a couple of chicken schnitzels and hopefully he'll eat that and pick at something. I don't know. But yeah.
I know. That is a huge battle. I was about to say, and even us that love cooking and you know, look like we have it all together with meal planning stuff, that happens every night to us. And I'm like, Lil, you really got to get better, bub. And she'll sometimes get up and just go, no. And I'm like, you're not moving until you try it. And then she'll try to be like, yummy. I'm like, oh, so you literally just judge it on the look and say no straight away. And she's all now into the, which I don't know where this comes from because my husband and I love meat. She's now all into the, what animal is this? And I'm like, oh.
I know.
And I'm like,
a pig.
Oh, that's a pig. Yeah. I'm like, that's a pig. And she's like, a real pig or a pretend pig? I'm like, no, darling, it's a real pig. Like I just, and I'm not going to lie to her. I'm not going to pretend it's something else. But she was never a picky eater. But in the last 9 months, I'm like, whoa, I hope this is just a phase, but it seems to just be continuing. Yeah,
I think that they're just maybe something they're teaching them at school. But I know sometimes when people reach out and they're just like, oh, you know, plant, I'm like, listen, I am all for, I love vegetarian meals. I love all meals, but I don't label myself as plant-based, vegan. I just am like, listen, if you don't like meat, leave it out. Substitute.
Yes, same. I try not to be, but I could get very cutthroat with that when they're like, what's a vegetarian option? I'm like, I'm not a vegetarian. Like
exactly. And I think that when it comes to like my girlfriend was like, oh, I'm gluten-free. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know the substitute. Do you use arrowroot flour? I don't know. I've never, so I can't tell you that it's going to taste good. And I don't want to test it because I don't care.
But
I just, and then my friend's like, oh, you can get plant-based sausages. I'm like, I'm not interested because
he's not interested.
It's full of shit. It's disgusting. Yeah. I would much rather leave the whole sausage out and just put mushrooms and eggplant and
go with veggies.
Yeah. Or like fish or something. I'm not going to be getting that processed stuff. I just feel like I'm seeing a lot of that.
Yes.
And I've even had a couple, like I don't do like many paid like stuff with brands yet, but I've had a couple reach out and it's always a freaking plant-based. I'm like, no. I just say no. I'm like, I don't know because I don't know.
But also you'd think that they would almost look at your profile a bit and be like, she loves her meat. So why? Because I had exactly the same this week. They offered a plant-based thing to me. I was like, how is that going to look to my community? All I'm doing is promoting meat, cooking with meat, and then I'm going to be like, hey, make these delicious plant-based when it's not me.
It has to be very authentic. And that's what I was going to say with your brand. Like, I don't know about you, but like sometimes I'm just seeing like a lot of like job opportunities being like very for the viral, like, oh, we want to be that shock factor. And I just look at them and I think like some of those viral videos and they're just slapping stuff and, you know, like, oh, put this donut with this meat. And I'm like, it's gross. You're not going to
Yeah, they had to actually taste good. Yeah, yes, definitely. And I put a couple of viral things on mine purely out of like, if I would only do it if it looks.
No, but that's like a salad. It's not like
some weird combination.
Pasta with ice cream, which I saw the other day. And I'm like,
yes. And you're like, really? I just don't think, they're doing it for the wrong reasons. It's like, that's never been a combination that's worked in, you know, Italians' history for the whole time. And I'm sure they would have found it and, you know, put it out there years ago if it was one that was going to work. So just don't try and start things that are not good together.
It's so hard. Where do you see your brand going? Like, what have you found that you love? Like, because I know we're all figuring it out. I've kind of I'm loving doing some little online cooking classes.
Yes.
I never thought I would do it. I never thought, especially when I started out, I was like, oh no. And then, I don't know, I kind of like it. I do.
Yeah. I know a few people have asked me recently, and one of my close girlfriends a few months ago was like, you should do cooking classes. And I'm like, oh God, I hadn't really ever thought of that. But
neither. And then I gave one a go and I thought, this is fun. I think the hardest part is though, like the whole time zone differences and getting it right. Because I think in lockdown, they were really great because everyone was home all the time. So you could do a Friday night, you could do something. Whereas now I'm like, oh, but anyway,
it's all very mixed.
You just gotta be like, I'm just going to do it. And whoever comes. And if no one does, then no one does.
Definitely. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like, again, what you were talking about before, not to overwhelm myself. Like I did have the conversation with my husband the other day about like, I do need to monetize this because that's what's so hard not to try and explain to people. I know that people get it, but it's like, you don't want to, the hardest thing for me is like, I've nearly been, and I know there's people out there that have been doing their blogs and their Instagram food pages for a lot longer, but I've sort of nearly been doing this for a year, haven't made any money, pouring a lot of money into it, you know, buying all the ingredients, doing all that. And while a lot of people have said, oh, but it's so great, you're just basically making your dinner and filming it at the same time. I'm like, there's a lot more that goes into it as just, it's not just that. So I sort of had the conversation where I'm like, I do need to start thinking about, and brands have contacted me, but as I said before, I've sort of been staying true to myself and only choosing brands that I'm like, I've either used in the past or I'd be proud to promote, or my community would actually find it useful to use that. But yeah, I sort of just started, released my first ebook late last week and see how that, will go. But my whole point was that I don't want to overwhelm myself, even though I do need to think about how to monetize this and how to make it, I also don't want to overwhelm myself and being like, well, now you've got to be thinking about this and this and this and, affiliated marketing and getting on here and getting another ebook going. And
I think we just look at a lot of people, like, I mean, personally as well. And I'm like, like this, but there's a lot of effort that goes into it. And
usually a team.
Yeah. And a team.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even have a VA. I do it all. And
same.
Like, if I do, I just think, well, I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, it's not worth getting someone to do the little things here and there, because I could just, by the time I explain it and show it, I've already done it, sort of thing.
Yes.
I did feel a little bit, not bad, but at first, when I first did my ebook, like my other one, I felt like a little bit, oh my God, I've got to charge. But I just thought, no, like, I just think, but that's like now when you go to the shops, you see sale, you just expect everything to be on sale, right?
Yeah.
Same thing as online. I was like, oh, everyone just, sees free recipes, free. I'm like, yeah, but it's different. When you pay for an ebook, you're supporting a family, but it also it's an incentive to actually cook the recipes in there.
Definitely. And also a nice plate. Like, a few people have already said to me since buying it, it's nice to have a collection of recipes in one place. Like, and I know it's not a physical cookbook, which I'd love to have a dream of one day. But
you know what? They don't actually make a lot of money with the physical books. Did you read that as well?
Yeah, I have heard that. So it's just... And that's the thing, it's even though it's digital, there's still so much time and effort and love behind that you do need to charge. Like, there's lots of places to go for free recipes, for sure. One of my favorite magazines is the Coles and Woolies magazine that you get monthly, with the recipes. And people can just do that. But as you say, if it's about support, it's about putting collection of your recipes together and giving help to whoever that's buying it, that kind of thing. So I think there is a stage where you've got to go, okay, I know I feel awkward doing this, but it is worth the time and the money.
To push through and level up. And I'm sure that if everyone at the early stages of when, people that we admire that are like 5, 6 years, 10 years into it, if you look back at when they started out, they also did the same thing. And I would see, I'm like, oh my God, the thought of learning SEO right now would just take, the
burn out.
It would just take the joy out of me cooking. I'm like, no.
I know. Yeah. And that's what's hard. You just got to, and that's why I sort of said to myself, I know I've got to do other things, but for the time I'm just like, but you can also just relax and enjoy it and,
just see where
celebrate how far you've come. Like, that's my other big thing. It's like, don't always try and I'm a big goalpost mover, but it's not always about that destination. You have to kind of enjoy it all along the way. And
And then when I feel like sometimes when I hit a goal, like I do the book, I'm like, okay, what's next? Next goal.
Yes. Rather than being like, oh my God, I've just released an ebook. It took me forever and it's all my favorite recipes. Like, let's celebrate.
No.
Yeah. No, next one.
We should do it. But sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I have to remind myself, what is wrong with you, woman? But
yes, exactly.
Oh God. But I always ask my guests, what is your go-to? Which I know you gave so many. I really, but what is your go-to CBF meal?
It's weird. I actually do have a few, as I always say, eggs on toast, because anyone can do them and like they don't require any recipe looking up or skill or whatever. But I love stir fries. Stir fries are my favorite. A quick pasta.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things that you were talking about earlier, where for people to meal plan, get a onion, garlic, cherry tomato sauce, like basic. Throw in your pasta, that's it. That could be your go-to. Oh, and if you've got
fresh veggie, dry herbs work amazingly.
Yeah, like simple stir fries I love. And the girls, actually both girls eat noodles. That is a plus. Like, but I if I could, I'd serve them every single night, but that would be a bit boring. So noodles are always like Asian noodles with meat or no meat is pretty amazing. I love them. But egg on toast. Sometimes a wrap in the toasty,
toasty.
Yeah. It's just like, why can't they be meals? You have them for lunch. Like,
why can't that be drive-through? Why is there not a toasty drive-through? That's why? I made a prosciutto, Swiss cheese, silver beet.
I love Swiss cheese.
and baked beans. I know it sounds weird, but
No, I love baked beans.
my husband's Italian and he'd never had baked beans. And I was like, I'm going to get him. I'm going to actually, he ate the whole thing. And I was like, what do you think was in that? And he's like, what did you put in there? And I said, baked beans. And he was like, and I was like,
oh, I don't eat that.
You loved it, don't like it.
Exactly.
Well, it's different because you put it with prosciutto. And I was like, oh, here we go. But
yeah. Can't let the baked beans pass.
Oh, love it. I love it. Anyway, where can people find you if they want to find you and follow you? I'll put it all in the notes and I'll
for sure.
But just in case, people.
Yeah. So my Instagram page, or do you say handle? I wouldn't even know, is @wholesome by Sarah. So you can find me there. I've also got a website, but the details are on the Instagram page anyway. If you want to go through to the blog, on the gram, exactly.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
No worries, Marilyn. It was great.
Thank you so much. All right.